Hi there. Welcome to the Parent Empowerment and Coaching and Early Intervention, or PEACE, Implementation Toolkit video series. Today, we're going to talk about a very important coaching strategy called collaboration. Collaboration in caregiver coaching involves two things. First, it's actively including the caregiver in developing intervention goals for their child and family. And second, it's including the caregiver in deciding on how to work on those goals. Within coaching, this is more than just asking caregivers about goals during the IFSP or IEP process. It means actively including the caregiver in intervention decisions every session. Sometimes, setting goals with caregivers during sessions can be structured like this.
Week with the practice plan. So we have his engagement, social engagement, communication, imitation, and play.
I want imitation.
Imitation. So imitate 3 different facial expressions and 3 different sounds.
Yes.
Other times, goal setting during sessions may be more of a conversation, like this.
I wanted to know, how do you want to start today? Did you want to do one of the activities, and that's fine, or did you want to continue discussing some of those problem and challenging areas that you see with Charles and kind of, troubleshoot those? It's up to you. So I know yesterday we were talking about them. I gave you a few, recommendations. Now you can tell me what you would like to start on, because I felt like they were a concern for you.
Yeah, true. We could do a little bit of both. Because
Let's go over some of the other key components of collaborating with caregivers during coaching sessions. An important part of collaboration while coaching caregivers is making sure that caregivers are able to make some decisions about what to do during sessions and take the lead in parts of the intervention session. This doesn't mean that caregivers decide everything about what to work on or do during sessions. It's important that your intervention expertise guides the content and flow of the sessions, but it does mean that the caregiver is your partner and you work with them to make decisions together during each session. You can do this by explicitly asking caregivers if there are certain things that they want to work on each session. You can ask questions like, what would you like to work on next? Or, we covered X and Y. Which technique would you like to focus on next? Another important collaboration strategy is to use and expand caregiver ideas during a session. Sometimes as providers, we forget to give caregivers the space to offer ideas, or we may be so focused on our plan for the session that we don't follow along with the caregiver suggestions. Let's take a look at some examples of providers using and expanding caregivers' ideas during actual coaching sessions.
Do you want to do 2 options? Sure, you can provide 2 options, yeah.
Likey, do you want cards? You want to do animals or Legos? Legos?
Legos!
Okay. Good choice.
In this video, we hear mom ask, do you want to give him 2 options? And the provider capitalizes on this opportunity to support mom in deciding which strategy to use, and then supports mom in using that intervention strategy. The provider follows mom's lead here and supports her in helping her child make a choice between 2 activities. The key in this short clip is that mom came up with an idea and the provider went with it and supported her use of the strategy seamlessly. Here's another example of a provider using and expanding a caregiver's idea.
Oh, so we could have them push the car and knock the numbers over, maybe?
Maybe, and even if you maybe alternate between his car pushing and then kind of substitute the ball in, and maybe he'll stay a little longer. You want to try it that way?
Yeah.
Now, I'm looking at him. So you told him that he was all done after that one. So do you think he would do it now?
Try to do something else for a little bit back, just so he doesn't hit.
Here, we see a collaborative back and forth between mom and provider, where they're engaging in shared decision-making about intervention strategies as they're implementing them. The parent clearly has ideas about what she wants to work on, and the provider uses those ideas, but offers suggestions to improve their effectiveness. This is a great example of incorporating the caregiver's ideas and expanding on them to support their implementation. You should also follow the caregiver's lead as much as possible during sessions. You can say something like, "That's a great idea, let's try that," or take a step back to allow the caregiver to continue the activity with the child and stand by to see how you can expand on what they're already doing. For example, If a parent brings out a ball to play with, you could use that idea of playing with a ball and offer suggestions to expand the ball play into an opportunity to work on turn-taking or imitation with their child. Let's see what this can look like during actual coaching sessions.
Very nice, Radira.
No more bubbles.
What are you going to go to now?
Probably his toys in there, his shake sorter.
This is a short and simple example of letting the caregiver lead and make decisions about what to do during the session. The provider asked, "What are you going to go to now?" when her child transitioned away from an activity instead of suggesting or telling the caregiver what to do next. Letting the caregiver decide which activities to do during the session and working with them to embed intervention strategies into whatever activities they choose helps empower them to take charge of the session and learn how to embed intervention strategies when you aren't with them. Let's watch another example of this happening during an actual session.
I'll go over. He's looking at books, so maybe I'll just take this over there and we can try to do something with books. Sorry.
That's okay.
Get this off. Hey, Rob, what are you reading? What are you reading? Do you want to read a book? Oh, do you want to read about the silly turkeys?
In this video, we see that Mom came up with an idea. She decided to read books with her child. This isn't what the provider was planning to do, but in the moment, she went with it, followed the mom's lead, and capitalized on the unplanned moment to let Mom take charge and lead parts of the session. This requires a great deal of flexibility, creativity, and openness to letting the session go in a different direction than you may have planned. It also can be a great way to collaborate with caregivers and help them take more of an active role in deciding what to work on and how to work on it during your sessions. Collaboration also involves asking for caregiver input on what happens during the session. Some caregivers may not readily offer their opinion about what you're working on or how the session is going, but it's important to have an open dialogue with caregivers about their views so we can understand their likes and dislikes related to what you're working on with their child. If a caregiver doesn't understand something or doesn't like it, they're not likely to follow through. You can ask for caregiver input during sessions by asking questions like, "How does that sound to you? Is this something you think would be helpful? And what concerns do you have about doing this?" Let's watch an example of a provider asking the caregiver for input during an actual session.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
No.
And you think that'll go well? How do you think that'll go if you do that with them?
Here's another example of a provider asking for the caregiver's input during an actual session.
It in your favor, and it worked out really, really well. Did you feel like it worked out really well?
Yeah.
In both of these videos, you see the providers asking for caregiver input about use of intervention strategies. In the first video, you saw the provider make sure the caregiver had an opportunity to provide input on whether or not she thinks she'll be able to use the strategy. The provider didn't just ask, "Do you have any questions?" She followed this up with a more direct question. "How do you think this will go for you?" Sometimes parents will default to saying no when asked if they have any questions, so asking a more direct question that prompts the caregiver to give specific feedback about using the strategies you are teaching them can ensure they have a space to share their opinions. In the second video, we saw the provider asking the caregiver for feedback about her progress using the strategies. Something as simple as, "How do you think it went?" can open the door for caregivers to voice their opinion and give input on the intervention strategies you are using. You might be thinking, "Okay, so I know what collaboration is, I know what it looks like, but why should I use this strategy with my families?" Well, there are several reasons that using collaboration can be beneficial for the caregiver, for you, and for your relationship with families. It empowers caregivers to take an active role in their child's intervention. Collaborating with caregivers ensures that family preferences and cultural values are included in the intervention approach. Collaboration improves the relationship between the provider and caregiver. And research has shown us that when we collaborate with caregivers, they're more involved and feel more empowered to support their children's development. By collaborating with caregivers, you help them better support their children outside of sessions with you and empower them to sit in the driver's seat of their child's life. So, let's work together to partner with caregivers and give them an active voice in their child's intervention sessions. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.